You're listening to the Valley Current.
Wow, doing if you're going to engage in the art of questioning, because some of the best stand-up comics do it really, really well, and some do it poorly, and you can actually learn from both of them. But by and large,
how do you tie the comedy to the questioning?
Well, I'm just saying at some point you often need a level of comedy to get people to believe you're human. And as a result of that, they tend to view you as someone they can trust. So you could argue the whole art of questioning is an art of gaining acceleration on the speed of trust. You could actually summarize the entire process of advocacy as the acceleration of the speed of trust. There's a book that I'll send to you the link for that was done about 10 or 15 years ago that said all of marketing and all of selling and all of zealous advocacy, which you can argue is the legal form of marketing and selling, is all about acceleration of the speed of trust. And the only way you do that is for people to be able to look at you and say, you know what? I think this guy's not bullshitting me. I think he knows his case. I think he has the facts. Because, by the way, most jurors come into a courtroom believing that the lawyers really know what the true case is, like Johnny Cochran in the case involving OJ. The prosecutor, I frankly forget their name.
Marcia Clark?
Yeah, what was the guy's name?
Was it Marcia Clark?
Marcia Clark, and what was the dude that was with her? There was a guy, black guy, that was with her that was kind of like always, you know, I'm not here as just some sort of, you know, black dude that's just next to Marcia Clark.
Mm-hmm.
We can't even remember his name, which is pretty telling. But basically that they really know the case, and a lot of the discernment among the jurors is trying to figure out which one of them is skirting what they know and which one of them is actually revealing what they know.
Mm.
So part of what's going on is the jurors think that the lawyers have what might be called a lot of the inadmissible evidence, or a lot of the puzzle pieces that can't be put on the board for some policy reasons because the cops screwed up or the defense screwed up or someone screwed up, and it can't come on the board because the judge is excluding it. Because all those sidebars where there's whispering between the judge and the lawyers, the jurors just say, well, that's just these guys deciding what filter they're putting on us. And a lot of the news that happens today is very similar. We as the jurors of that news we're often like, what's real and what's being filtered, and you know, how much of this is spin and how much of it is real. And so there's a lot of initial rejection to whatever it is that people are saying until you build some rapport, some level of, you know, this guy's actually telling the truth, or this gal's telling the truth. You know, unfortunately, I don't think Marcia Clark or Mr. Darden was his name. I can't remember his first name, but Darden, D-A-R-D-E-N. Now it's coming to mind. Chris Darden. And, you know, you could watch versions of that trial and see really great advocacy. Like, if the glove don't quit, you must acquit. Now, I would have improved that with putting it in a question form. If I were Johnny Cochran, and by the way, he was one of my clinical trial advocacy professors at UCLA back in the 1970s. And he was thin. He was thin back then. He was a basketball player. I mean, I want to say he gained.
So were you.
I was
the two of you were both basketball players who were thin. Both of you.
Both thin, right? And back then, I think I would say to him, if he were still alive, unfortunately he died a number of years ago, but I would say to him, Johnny, you should have put it, isn't it so that when the glove don't fit, you just simply must acquit? Don't you agree with that? Like, I would have put it in question form instead of the declarative form, because I think it would have been a little bit more sellable than the way he did it. But obviously the way he did it was successful, so you can't argue with success. And he did effectively frame that entire case in one sentence around one theme, which is the glove is the key evidence, and the cops have planted the glove, and the cops are guilty of misconduct, period, full stop. And remember, that was right after the error, and I know you went to UCLA as well, so
I was there.
yeah, so you know that there was that whole beating that occurred by the police that was on video over and over again, and
Rodney King.
still
Yeah.
reeling from that, right?
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
so it was a fire keg of a time in life when, all the evidence, all the DNA evidence, and the civil case obviously decided that he was guilty on a different standard of guilt, what's called preponderance of the evidence, or the 51% test, not the beyond reasonable doubt evidence. And Cochran and crew, and I guess one of them or a few of them are still alive. A lot of that team is dying off, but Dershowitz is still alive. They know how to frame a theme around a single point. And that becomes the art of expressing the theme in a single point or a single question. And that really is the ultimate art of advocacy. But along the way, there are, of course, all these other styles of questions that you have to get good at asking, and you have to get good at listening to what's the actual answer to the information. I know you listened to that remark where he said, sometimes the witnesses say something kind of crazy and you haven't even heard it. You haven't listened to it.
I love that because I can't pinpoint an exact moment, but there have been many moments in my life where I feel like outside of any legal universe, a question is asked, a brilliant answer, an unexpected answer is delivered, and people move on as if that unexpected, beautiful answer landed nowhere. And it's up to...
That's unfortunately what's happened as a result of the scripting of America. People don't want to go off script.
Why is that?
They really don't want to listen to what the hell was the answer that just occurred. But I thought what we should do, maybe, I mean, this might be useful for you to remember. Irving Younger was quite an individual, so it might be useful to kind of cut into this a little part of what Irving Younger said. So let me put this in and see if it resonates with you for a second.
Okay.
Talking about cross-examination, ladies and gentlemen, a good cross-examiner. Think that I can help you to avoid being an abominable cross-examiner. And that modest objective is my objective this evening. Let me begin by suggesting to you an approach to cross-examination. I dare say that now, halfway through this session of the National Institute for Trial Advocacy, what I have to say will come as no news. But I'm also prepared to bet you that 10 days ago it may have come to news to some of you, and I'm sure it would come as news to most of the trial bar in the United States. How does a trial lawyer approach cross-examination? Let me suggest my thinking on this by way of contrast. Imagine that we had with us an intelligent man from Mars, someone who knew nothing about our trial system, but he spoke our language and was pretty bright. And he had learned a little bit about what our trial system was like, and then we said to him, "Now, sir, you tell us, how do you think a trial lawyer goes about preparing his case? How does he go about trying? How does he approach it?" And the answer you might get from that intelligent but ignorant man from Mars would probably go something like this. Right. The trial lawyer walks into court, he tells the jury what he's going to prove. The other lawyer tells what he's going to prove, and the first lawyer listens. Now he knows what the other side is going to prove. And now the witnesses testify. And as the witnesses testify, the lawyer listens, and he learns what the evidence is. And then after all the evidence has been received, the lawyer puts it all together in his mind, and he stands up and delivers his summation to the jury, and then he goes out and prays, and the jury decides the case. And if that's what any one of you thinks, you're doing it ass backwards. Every good trial lawyer knows that that's absolutely the wrong way to do it. And if that's the way you're going to do it, you're never going to be a trial lawyer. A good trial lawyer, no matter what the case, no matter what the court, thinks about that case to the exclusion of everything else for whatever time is available to him to prepare the case. Be it, for those of you who work in poverty law offices, be it 5 minutes. You got 5 minutes to prepare the case? Yeah, at most. That's what you think about for 5 minutes. I know trial lawyers in New York City who, if they have 6 months to try the case, stop reading the newspaper for those 6 months. They don't open the mail because it's distracting. Has another advantage, by the way, if I may interject. Someday you ought to try ignoring your mail for 6 months. You know what you'll discover? Makes no difference whatsoever. Nothing changes. And then you save all that time and hassle of answering correspondence and so forth. Your mind is focused upon that trial to a degree of concentration unknown to practitioners in any other branch of the profession and unknown to any other kind of profession. You think of nothing else. You live, sleep, and breathe that trial. And finally, before the trial starts, you reach the point where you have analyzed that case so thoroughly and are so well prepared that you can stand up and deliver your summation to the jury before the trial starts. And if you can't deliver to the jury before that trial starts, you're not prepared for the trial. And let me tell you, if you have done your job, the summation you actually deliver after a week, 2 weeks, or 2 months of trial will be within 90% of the summation you have prepared in advance. If anything more than 10% of that trial is unanticipated and comes as a surprise, you have not done your job.
So the reason I shared that is because I wanted to sort of underscore that he is viewed in my mind as the true guru of trial advocacy questioning and teaching the art. And he didn't go through the whole 10 commandments, which, as you know, takes about an hour or more. There's actually a 3-hour version of that lecture that I'll find for you. And there's actually an 18-hour set of lectures as well. Hold on, let me turn this thing off. He's actually continuing here. Hold on. There's actually a lot of versions of this in some form. But I'll just tell you that these 5 C's are all demonstrated by his point, which is you have to immerse yourself in such a way that the speed of trust accelerates because people just view you as an expert on the facts and on the law of what applies to the particular case. But more and more, unfortunately, cases are not justifying that treatment, or the courts are too busy, or the clients don't want to pay for it, but he's giving you the very essence of what the art is of getting really great at questioning. And I think of in your situation involving marketing, it's sort of similar. You have to immerse yourself in that market and in the segment and with the product or the service and with all of the points of alignment or misalignment that exist in however the delivery is or isn't happening, to truly understand how you're going to present that. I'm going to send you a podcast I did of a guy that I've known for many decades who just finished a book called Aligning the Dots, aligning your business or product or service in a way that makes the message believable and true, which of course, is what often is lacking. He's a French guy. You'll probably enjoy it because some of the way in which I question him during that podcast is useful. But a lot of this is very much an art more than a science. It really does take a lot of practice to do well. And it means you have to get good at the writing and thinking about questions. So if you were to go, for example, in my LinkedIn and look at a lot of the various stories that I repitch there, they often start with a question that starts with the tagline like query, as in, think of this question. That's the shorthand that lawyers use, a single word query, Q-U-E-R-Y, sort of like, give this some thought. Is this pandemic that we're currently going through going to change our children and grandchildren forever? And it's kind of an interesting question because I think it probably will. And among other ways, like years ago, we never did video calls. We thought, no, phone is for audio. Now we are routinely doing them and people are getting used to it. They're accepting it and they're accepting patience because you're in one room and I'm in another and we're not coordinating correctly. And they're just accepting that, and they're becoming more flexible, maybe more patient too. So there's some good there.
Jack, I have a question for you, and I'm just going to be conscious of time and the time we booked for today.
Yes.
And I would, by the way, love to continue with
Sure.
you at any point that you're free.
Yes.
And that is for people outside of marketing, outside of law. If you're doing any kind of job and you pick up a book on question masters and the art and science of questioning, from everything you've learned over your career, what would you share with somebody who is interested in having more impact in their life by asking sharper questions? What would you share with them about what they could do to become more effective, more building trust faster? What's an essential lesson for them?
So what I do as an exercise, and I think it would be a very useful exercise to imagine more people doing, is as I read the news, I typically write the question, and I spend at least a couple of hours a day, often very early in the morning, sometimes late at night, reading the news that comes in from either the Far East late at night because it's the beginning of the morning their day, or Europe late at night. You know, if you're up at midnight, it's already, as you know, Europe is getting started, and you're starting to read like the FT, or you're starting to read stuff that's coming through. Phrase a single question around whatever piece of news that you have that you either believe or disbelieve or have some wonder about, you know, or sort of like, well, I wonder what really follows from this, and get used to sharpening, at least, you know, in an item by item basis. There are a lot of ways to do this. You don't have to publish, but I think there is kind of a value if you were to post the question on a website, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram, whatever it is, that question with the article, because you are disclosing a bit about yourself and how you think about truth or falsity or deception or incomplete information. And so just by that exercise, which is a very form of active listening or active reading, and I think if we get our kids and grandkids in the mode of doing that, so that they are more critically thinking about the news or about information that comes across the bow, I think there is a great value in doing that, because it does help you sharpen. And I often see, sometimes I read later what I wrote and published on LinkedIn, I say, wow, I could have reduced that down to like 6 words and it was 9 words. And, you know, that's being harsh, but it is like 30% more words, right?
That's the art of copywriting right there.
That's right. Exactly.
Rich Silverstein, who was one of the owners of Goodby Silverstein and Partners, whenever you had to make an out-of-home billboard, so when you drive down 101 and you look at the billboards on the side of the freeway, his rule was 5 words or less.
Yes.
Never more.
But there are a lot of people that can't do that because they kind of feel like a word, adding more words somehow proves their intelligence. And the better people out there know that simplification is so much more valuable. And being able to say, you know, I didn't have time to write a short letter has real meaning, because it does take time to use Occam's razor and cut it down to the essence. And it does have a lot more meaning when you do that, because people can see. I mean, what we like to do here, and this is another exercise, we like to take the best one-page letters and put them in a binder for people to read and say, we actually got a point across to opposing counsel or a judge or anyone else in 1 page, 3 paragraphs, 12 sentences. And it's complex, but it's delivered in a way that's readable, because a lot of people, the minute you show them something that's more than 1 page, they're like, I'm not going to get to it. I'll put it to the side. And then they never get to it at all. So you've got to capture people's attention when you have it.
Also, I wanted to go back just quickly to clarify, you know, that you said simplification takes time and has more meaning. And then you started to say people can see, but you cut your sentence off. And I wondered the rest of that sentence, people can see what when you're able.
People can see you've done the work.
Okay.
People can see you have competence. People can see that you're capable of delivering or respecting their time. People can see that you're not sloughing off work to them in moving the puzzle pieces around. Like, people can understand.
And what does that get you? When people can see that you've done the work?
Yes, people believe then that you're competent, that you're able, you're confident. It delivers on the C's. It delivers on the confidence. It delivers on competence. It delivers on credibility. It delivers on clarity. It delivers on just everything. And, you can almost instantly see, I can almost instantly see from the first letter that I get from an opposing lawyer, whether this person really is capable of trying a case. I mean, think about that. I'm judging from the first letter whether this opposing advocate can actually try this case. And you know what? His case is either going to get more settlement value or less settlement value if I'm defending, or he's going to have his client pay more or pay less if I'm prosecuting, just based on how I evaluate his capability to deliver from that very first letter.
So let me pause you there.
Yes.
I want to pull back to the 35,000 foot
Yes.
view, because you say we have simplification. We're talking about 5 words. People can see you've done the work to get to the 5 words. People then feel like you respect their time. They believe in you. They believe in your
Yes.
credibility. And then I'm wondering if at the very top of that, or actually if you invert it, the very bottom of that, are we talking about, back to your point about accelerated trust, that
Yes.
ultimately questions convert into a concurrency of trust?
Yes.
That the better question earns you more trust,
Yes.
and that trust is what delivers on impact, maybe.
Yes. And if you arrange the order of the questions in a way where one builds on another, or the puzzle pieces are moving into place faster and better and more cleanly, the trust gets accelerated further. So think of it as Irving Younger delivered for you in just the hour that you watched, in the longer version of the 4 minutes that we watched a second ago, a real credible presentation that he is the master of what might be called destructive cross-examination, or teaching destructive cross-examination. He did that fairly quickly. Someone who did not do that very well probably would never be able to do it for you if you watch them and they kind of tumbled along and didn't really deliver. But he delivered no notes, no cue cards, no index cards, no script, because he knows his stuff and he's written books about it. And, he's very learned. And so that almost within the first 4 minutes, just as we watched there, he was very capable. And you could hear it in his voice. And there's no lack of being able to deliver on the promise of him explaining the topic that he addresses.
And
so
was that the
same thing?
And forgive me if I were a law student, I'd be able to pull this up in a hot second.
Yes.
But the case of Erie versus Tompkins, that
Yes.
you had all these lawyers, as I remember the story, who were night school, never tried a case, never been a judge, never. And then you had on the other side for Erie, the Yale grads, the deeply experienced partners, and that in effect was the impact they were able to achieve driven by the trust they were able to command. I had to imagine that if you have a lawyer who's never tried a single case in his life, that the credibility, that the trust that he would earn from anyone listening to his stories would be measurably less, and therefore the impact might be considerably less in his favor.
Yes, and people are doing substitutes for watching trials because they're not seeing as many trials. So, for example, a couple of resources I'll send to you. There's actually a list of videos of segments of movies, like My Cousin Vinny. I'm sure you remember that movie. There are actually little segments online on YouTube of the best sessions of different movies where lawyers are questioning witnesses either well or badly. And you can watch those. There's also live video from courtrooms on a channel that now exists called CVN, Courtroom Video Network. It's a private channel. It's expensive. I want to say a single license might be like $1,000 a month. But lawyers who are interested in the art of advocacy watch that channel to see how other great lawyers, or sometimes not so great lawyers, present complex cases to jurors on video, because these trials are being videotaped. Sometimes they're murder cases, sometimes they're big business cases, big personal injury cases, big class action cases. And some lawyers do well, and there are actual CBN reporters that are summarizing, and often they'll say, wow, this lawyer did a great job. Everyone should watch this 20 minutes of examination, and it becomes viral for a very small segment of lawyers that are watching. It's probably like 100 of us that are actually watching. Maybe it's 1,000, but it's clearly not most of the bar. So you can get the drift of that.
Can I ask you one question in closing? Last one. Is there a question, the most important question you've ever asked? Is there a question that comes to mind?
Oh, I think in the middle of a trial, there's always one question that sort of just opens the door to everything. And I could think of at least a dozen, maybe a couple of dozen different cases where there was that one question that was either the one question too many, where I got punched right in the nose, will always be kind of memorable. I try not to remember those because they're so embarrassing. But then there is the one question which was just like, when the witness answered, everything just unlocked, like the door unlocked, like everything just opened, and there was instant insight. And when that happens, it's like an immediate flow-like moment where everything just clicks. And I'll try to remember, we'll do this again. I'll try to remember some examples from each of the cases, because it's more than 40-year history of doing now thousands, if not tens of thousands of cases, of which, of course, less than maybe 100 actually go to trial. So that's still a lot of cases by dint of the way trials get done here in America. Of course, you probably don't remember, Daryl Nelson was my partner. She was a barrister. She died a couple of years ago. She had tried, by the time she became my partner, she had tried 600 cases, because in England, barristers try like sometimes 2-3 cases a week, because that's all they do. And that's their practice. And solicitors do all the grunt work, and they're like shocked at what happens in America. We'll do this again. I'll send you some stuff to read. It sounds like it'll be a fun chapter. Hopefully you'll watch this with your husband and kids and get a kick at least out of the 4 minutes of Irving Younger, if not more. I hope you enjoy it, and I'll certainly look back on it, and we'll do it again. I'll send you some dates where we can do it again.
Thanks, Jack. It's been a pleasure. Great to see you again, too.
Bye.
Okay, lots of love. Bye.
Tune in next time on The Valley Current.